This is going to go for a while, so I'm just going to have it recording. What I might do, just for the cheek, is
Wait, before you do anything.
Yeah.
Be quiet. Be completely silent for a
Okay,
second.
right. Oh, I see. That's one of two things. That's either going to sound great, or it's going to be a horrible clip on the mic.
Yeah, I did do it right
so
next to the
sound.
microphone.
Woo. I might just stick this on widescreen in the background and clip it back and forth from time to time. We just watched Into the Spider-Verse.
We did.
It came out on Netflix. Only a few days ago, right?
Today or yesterday?
Very, very recently.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
How many times have you seen the movie, Kanchi?
So this is the third time I've seen the movie, and I cried less this time, but I still cried.
I got very close. I got very, very close to crying because, it's weird because we kind of set a precedent for watching movies. Sometimes when we're sitting down, because we make a habit of watching shows together because it's fun and we live together and it's chill. But depending on how high stakes the thing we're watching is, will really affect how we choose to watch it. So we've been watching Parks and Rec, and we'll be quite comfortably on our phones chatting shit during the runtime. But then if we're watching something more serious, like The Great Pretender, where it's really the story is impactful and a bit more, you gotta focus on what's happening, then we'll typically be like phones off, sit down and focus kind of thing. But this felt like a weird outlier where it's a superhero movie, and an animated one, no less. So I expected it to be a bit no, I've seen the movie before, so I know it to be a bit playful, but it's so majestic. It's so fucking good to look at that I still felt the need to pay it some amount of my attention-based respect by minimizing my phone usage and things like that.
Yeah, it's not a movie that you can really take your eyes off in some regards. It's just stunning to look at in almost every frame.
They have a thing in the movie where they like to do almost single frames that they take. It almost looks like a weirdly out of context frame where they thought this would look cool, so we'll just change the background for one single frame to make it almost look like it's perfectly out of the comic book. And every time that would happen, I would audibly be like, ooh! And I'd be punching the air in my seat and tensing my body to try and seatbelt myself for just how good what I'm absorbing was.
Oh, I just clutched my pearls.
you say a quick prayer.
Yeah.
Oh, it's that good though. It's that good.
I want to touch on the point that you talked about seriousness and
yes.
the way it tells its story and the fact that it's quite playful. I think the main thing that I took away from it this time is that superhero movies struggle a lot with trying to tell a story in the sense that they get hung up in how they're telling their story as opposed to the story that they're telling.
Yeah.
And you can tell very quickly that Into the Spider-Verse does not care. I think it pokes fun at it by the fact that it's there's an overload key. It's we just call it a goober.
Yeah.
They don't care too much to try and make everything fit and make everything work, because ultimately the strength of it is the story that it is. And the characters and how they interact in that story and what stakes that creates and what emotional consequences there are to their actions. It's something that I think a lot of live action superhero movies struggle with, that they try to create these sort of almost human stories within a superhero world.
Yeah.
But then they get too bogged down in that to really effectively tell a good story.
I struggle with, so the last superhero movie that I watched that wasn't Into the Spider-Verse was Black Panther. And I feel, especially with Marvel, I feel like you're turning up to the cinema mostly for the bombast and spectacle above anything. It's still a great story. I loved a lot of the other detailed aspects of Black Panther. The costume design above everything was so fucking stellar in Black Panther. To have all of this mixing of African tribes culture with weird hyper tech, it's a mad comic stroke of genius. But the point still remains that the focus of story and characters falls behind a little bit in focus of the spectacle. And it was nice to feel like it. I don't know. I felt like there was a good balance struck with Into the Spider-Verse. I personally I was quite invested. I loved seeing Miles's journey from oh no, what spider, and then he's shooting webs and he's electrocuting people and he thinks he's the hottest fucking shit.
I think one one other thing I noticed is Into the Spider-Verse is very efficient with its storytelling. Like we don't.
Yeah, it was so quick.
If you think about Miles, his dad, and his uncle, you learn a lot about those three characters and their relationships with each other. You don't actually get that much interaction between them compared to, say, Spider-Man and Miles. Or,
Peter Parker.
Peter B. Parker and Miles. That's like the bulk of the movie.
Yeah.
But you still learn a lot about, Miles' dad, uncle. And you learn, like, the fact that the dad and uncle had, like, a history and then they grew apart. And they do a really good job of just having these little snippets of conversation that give you so much detail and so much context that the emotional bits still pack a punch without us needing to really get bogged down in the characters too much.
Okay. So question for you, Kenshi. Is Into the Spider-Verse the single best Spider-Man movie?
Yeah, I had to run through my head of all the Spider-Man movies. Yes, it is, absolutely.
Why?
I guess it's for the reason, the first reason that I said. So I think it doesn't fuss about origin stories. I think if you think about even like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies or like the or even the Amazing Spider-Man movies, every single villain, first of all, Spider-Man has to be given his backstory with Uncle Ben dying.
Yeah, every single time.
Yeah, and then like every single villain needs to be given context and its own story, and then like there has to be something going on in the story before Spider-Man gets to the villain.
Uncle Ben needs to be fucked up in so many ways before we can rehash the same story that we used to.
And we need to hear
different suit.
We need to hear Peter with MJ and Peter with Harry, and it's just like there's like all these different things going on. Whereas Into the Spider-Verse it literally starts with the laser.
Yeah.
The stakes are already set in the first 10 minutes. And then it just focuses on that. Like the fact is all these spider people need to get home.
Yeah.
There is a laser that's going to go off in a couple of days and maybe blow up all of New York. It doesn't waste any time.
No, I noticed that. So the quickest blip of time for me, because like you said, I agree. It's very, very efficient storytelling. You're right that it stakes first. There's a spider in literally 20 minutes into the movie. There's a spider. We see the radioactive spider, which, by the way, I love the way it's animated. It's like jittery and phasing through reality. And it almost looks robotic, like a fucking cybernetic spider. But yeah, it's the quickest blip of time for me, which was the scene that almost got me crying, was when Peter Parker confronted Miles in his bedroom after the fucked up operation in which Uncle dies. And he says, "Oh, you're not ready until you can do all this good spider stuff." And then he leaves. And then Miles, after an emotional scene with his dad, just is like, "Right, all right." And then he goes off and he just does it. He goes and gets his suit. He jumps off a building. The most iconic fucking single frame in the whole movie happens, which makes me want to explode. But it all happens in what must be like 9 minutes. It's literally, "You're not strong enough, so we're going to do this without you." And he goes, "That's not fair." and then he just completely turns it around in a matter of like seconds. It's but the thing is, like, even though we can criticize it and say, "Wow, that was fast," it's so qualitative that I think it bypasses the idea of speed, because you get to see everything in such vivid, like high fidelity, that you don't even feel like you've been robbed of storytelling because you've been treated to so much in that 9 minutes.
Yeah, and it's not like you don't know what's happened. Like you've sat through the scene, you've just seen Miles' dad speak to him. You understand that it's that speech that has spurred Miles on to, be more active and see the spark in him. And that doesn't get lost in translation at all. It doesn't need the extra context. It's enough in itself to be like, okay, cool, we can just get this done in 9 minutes. Because, we know what the stakes are, we know what the emotional sort of core is there.
Yeah, I guess it's like you said, it's efficient, not rushed. Nothing about this movie feels rushed. No. Nothing. But a lot of it does feel efficient. And I guess I feel like I want that from more superhero movies. If it's going to be back-to-back spectacle, this idea of efficient but not rushed storytelling is actually a really winning formula, which I guess is one of the things we could point out as to why Into the Spider-Verse is as good as it is. It has very little downtime. Like, if a scene is not bombastic action, it's probably characters that they've made you care a lot about doing pretty chill or emotional things in the in-betweens. Like the humor's there, the emotion's there. I love seeing Miles with his mum. I love that a lot. It's just a very successfully sort of told story, I guess.
Yeah, and that's not an easy thing to do, because you can very quickly cross the line from efficient into rushed, and you could feel that the characters don't get developed enough and you don't quite get invested enough. But they have struck that balance really well, and like I said earlier, it's really hard to make a film that's this good, but they did it.
I feel like anime has ruined me a bit, because what I found myself doing watching the film was going, "Oh, look how much that must have cost." Whenever I see, like, they clip away from a frame to show some very minor detail, like the hinge on the door closing, or like the camera swooping through the railroad tracks to pan up to see where Miles is walking next. It's just all of these extra little decisions that I think, they really cut no corners whatsoever. They could have done this the lazy way and kept the frame kind of boring or simple or something that they already pre-animated. But they do all of these extra efforts and ticks and twitches that really... You can see it. You can. The effort that has to have, the effort that they have to have gone to is so plainly visible. It's mad. It's all kinds of mad. So, you've seen this 3 times. Why did you feel the need to watch it again?
Other than the fact that you suggested we should watch it.
Other than the fact that
no, because I actually...
Hey, we could try making this video format.
No, because to be fair, 2 days ago I was like, Into the Spider-Verse is coming to Netflix and we should watch it. So it was kind of on me. I don't know. It's a film that's very, very easily rewatchable.
Yeah.
Because it's just such a visual spectacle.
Yeah.
That even if you'd seen it like 5 times, you'd watch it just to see all the pretty colours and how well animated everything is.
Oh, sorry. With the color work, I mean, there's a lot of dynamic color work in the throughout its runtime. But the one bit that I really fucking liked was when they activated the quantum portal thingy, and each individual spider was returning to their own universe, and there was a big flash of. It's almost like mixed media. Well, the film does contain bits of mixed media. You get like very, very drastic changes in the animation when they're like they'll literally show comic book panels from time to time, or they'll have flashback sequences, again told in comic panels, rather than the conventional animation that the rest of the film is in. But specifically when all of the various spider people were returning to their universes, and each time they blip through the portal, there'd be a huge strike of colour, and the entire like contrast and shading of everything would change for a moment. It's so...
Yeah, it would always match the character that just gone through the portal as well.
Yeah. And it's like, in retrospect, you think of it and go, yeah, of course that's the decision they would make. But then they did, and it was great, and I loved it. It's like, yo, they did the thing that they should have done.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Do you care much for superhero movies?
Yeah. No, I do. In a sense that I wish a lot of them were better.
Yeah.
I started reading comics in like 2013, 14, something like that. And that was around the time superhero films started sort of taking off, and superhero TV shows as well.
Yeah.
And one thing I really enjoyed about comics was that comics, much like Into the Spider-Verse, don't bother with an origin story, because if you're hopping into a comic, it's kind of assumed that you either know what's going on or you're just willing to jump in and dig in.
Yeah.
So I think the first comic I started reading was The Flash.
Mm-hmm.
And like I kind of knew the origin of the Flash already, but then I just started reading it, and it was just like, oh, the Flash is here, and oh, these villains, and they're in the city, and oh, the Flash has to do this, and ultimately it's a good story because it's interesting to see the Flash go and deal with these problems, and the Flash is a very good comic because it's very, very good at grounding itself in human stories and like human relationships, because Barry is a very sympathetic character.
Yeah. I know nothing about the Flash. Yeah. I know he's fast. But
he's fast. So the actual character, Barry Allen, is a very sympathetic character.
Yeah.
Or empathetic, maybe is a better word.
You can empathise with him.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's not even that. It's like the way he interacts with people is in such a way that he has almost a naive sense of like wanting to do the right thing and wanting to help people. So it's quite easy to get caught up in that. And it's enough that when you see a sort of like a 6-comic story, these stories aren't very long because it's quite hard to fit much story in a 6-comic run.
Yeah.
But it's enough that it's interesting. There is an arc, and you are interested in the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when I started watching these movies, the movies take a lot more time because an hour and 40, 2-hour runtime is a long time. You do get to spend a lot more time with characters, get to know them a bit better. But I never felt like it was benefiting the story that much.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think just some superhero movies did it better than others. But yeah, so I think that's what I do care about superhero movies, but I kind of just wish they were more like comics.
Yeah, and I guess that's again one of the huge strong points of this of Into the Spider-Verse. It is so centered around looking like it's pulled right out of a comic. Like the shading is very, very clearly it's that dotty and hashy style that you see from conventional comic books, leveraged to perfection. Basically, it's like not constant, but it's easily recognizable enough that you know that it's there and you feel like it's a calculated effort every time you see it. A talking point that I really want to bring up, because this review, for all intents and purposes, if this video ever gets made, is very late. Into the Spider-Verse has been out now for
2 years?
2 years. At least a year. It's been out for a while. Everyone's already, it has been and gone for all intents and purposes, but we still find reasons to talk about it because bold statement. I think Into the Spider-Verse might have had a larger cultural impact than any other superhero movie. Maybe not the Endgame. Maybe the only thing that might rival it is Endgame in terms of sheer cultural impact. But I remember Twitter having a fucking field day with so many screenshots and so many booming compliments to give to this movie. I know you don't go on Twitter because you don't have a Twitter, but people ever since this movie, people were making spider sonas. Literally, people were making their own. If I was a spider person, what would I be? Designs, and that's fucking cool. That's so cool. It's a whole lot of love, and it's crazy to just see communities be inspired by good media. I think media's become so important to just how popular culture interacts, and this was something to be spoken about.
Yeah, I think to some extent it probably took a lot of people by surprise because no one was expecting. Everyone knew there was an animated Spider-Man movie coming out, but when someone tells you there's an animated Spider-Man movie coming out, you think, oh, it's probably going to be a bit childish or a bit, And
it's going to be about Peter Parker.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
but then,
yeah, but even if you knew the movie and you were following it and stuff, and which I was doing, I knew, so I knew Phil Lord and Chris Miller were involved. I knew it was Sony producing it. I knew it was based on Miles Morales. I'd seen trailers, which looked stunning. Even despite all that, I couldn't have guessed how good this film was going to be.
Yeah,
which I think has helped solidify its sort of cultural staying power. I didn't see Endgame.
Oh, you fool!
So I was tired by that point. I'd watched Infinity War and I hadn't enjoyed it.
Oh, that's a shame. I liked Infinity War. But again, I liked it for very, very shallow reasons. I liked it because it was superhero spectacle and less because it was cinematic mastery by any means.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a very good-looking film.
Yeah.
I care about some of the characters, but only because they've spent 24 movies or whatever building up all these characters.
Yeah.
So, at that point, if you don't care about the characters, then they've clearly done something wrong. Yeah. But they haven't, because it's still going.
Yeah, of course. I feel like Marvel is... I don't know if it's the highest grossing film franchise of all time.
I think Endgame is the highest grossing film of all time.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's believable. It's highly believable. But yeah, that just says something about the cultural significance of superheroes in our current media.
Yeah.
So, which characters do you care about? Miles, of course. We can have a whole deconstruction on Miles if you want. But which relationships did we love? Who was our favorite Spider person? Did you pick favorites? To be fair.
Yes, I mean, for some context, there is actually an Into the Spider-Verse comic.
Okay.
It's not that similar to the film at all.
Oh.
The only thing it shares is that all the spider people get dumped into a single place.
Is it the same spider people from this movie, or are there different spider people?
So other than Peter B. Parker, who I'm not sure where I'm guessing he was just written in for plot convenience. Yeah. Every other spider person in this movie was taken from that comic, as far as maybe even older comics.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware, they are in the Spider-Verse comic though, including Spider-Ham.
Yeah.
Spider-Ham?
Peter Porker. He was a spider bitten by a radioactive pig.
Yes.
which I love.
But more importantly, so was Spider-Gwen, who even got her own spin-off series from that because she was so popular. And, I mean, I fell in love with her as soon as I saw the design.
Right. I hate having to do this, but Spider-Gwen is a character that has me Googling the age of characters. I don't like how good she is. She's so good.
You only need to find Miles Morales' age and then add 15 months to it.
Yeah, which means she's probably 17.
She was in high school, probably. Yeah.
Discounting that, the designs are all kinds of amazing.
Yeah, and so Spider-Gwen in the comic is very similar to Spider-Gwen in the film.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, the origin story is exactly the same. They both lose Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Instead of Peter losing Gwen, which is what normally happens in the comics.
I didn't even know that Gwen died in the... Oh.
Yeah, so the canonical story is that Peter fails to save Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
So Peter was in love with Gwen.
Yeah.
But he
not
fails...
Mary Jane?
No, not originally.
Oh.
So Peter was in love with Gwen, and Gwen dies.
Yeah.
And then Peter ends up with MJ. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of variations on Spider-Man. It's been running for how many other years now? A few decades.
Yeah.
But from most of the Spider-Man media that I've read, that's kind of the gist of the story. So yes, he fails to save Gwen. That's a fairly pivotal moment for his character. And so so Spider-Gwen has the exact same but opposite, where she fails to save Peter.
Yeah.
And it does have like a very profound effect on her character, which we see in the movie as well, where she's quite not distrusting, but she's quite closed off. Yeah.
I mean, she makes a point to specifically say like she's a bit of a loner, and when she's doing her little character introduction, it shows her like walking very, very self-consciously in the frigid New York backdrop. Are they they're in Brooklyn for this? Yeah. That's something that I want to point out, because I feel like a lot of American media has this city appeal, something that British people don't get to experience a lot living on this like shitty rainy island. Is the kind of cityscape drama that you get depicted in the likes of a lot of superhero movies, to be fair. Definitely Spider-Man, because it's so like New York centric.
Yeah.
Two broke girls.
That classic superhero story.
Yeah, they have this certain media. So like Splatoon is a good example of media that capitalizes unapologetically on youth culture. And I love it. I eat that shit up, and I think based on just the feeling that those tall buildings in confined spaces with busy roads but still bright colour and trees everywhere, it has such a selling point as an aesthetic backdrop for so many different stories to be told, and I love it. It's to put it simply, it just gives me some kinds of like butterflies just seeing shit go on in the big city.
I'm surprised you didn't mention New Donk City.
New Donk City's one. Donk City's a big one. I missed Odyssey now. I didn't get all the moons. Okay, so back to the idea that this is going to be a review and that we're going to be taking little bits out of this.
Yeah.
We've said a lot about what we love about the animation, and how it's literally just ripped out of a comic book. It does so much with color work and paneling and shading to just feel... It's carved its own identity a bit. I can't think of any other movie. I can't think of any other movie that looks like Into the Spider-Verse, or at least looks as qualitatively like Into the Spider-Verse. It's set its own bar, basically.
No, I'm trying to remember. So there's I'm trying to remember if Sin City, the movie, tried to stylize itself like the comic, but it's not. I can't remember off the top of my head now. So this is kind of pointless.
Fair. Don't worry about it.
There is actually one example that I do have. There's a movie called Red, which is Retired Extremely Dangerous, and it's based off the comic Red, which is the same premise. So like retired. I think they're hitmen. I can't remember. Anyway, that movie does a lot of like scenes where there's where like certain shots get slow-mo down to a very, very, very slow pace. It almost feels like a freeze frame that's slightly moving.
Yeah.
And those shots feel like they're taken straight out of like a comic panel.
That's cool.
There's one iconic shot in my head where there's a car that's like skidding on its side. Bruce Willis literally gets out of the car and then like is standing with a gun, and the car's like sideways behind him, and it's all in slow-mo. And it looks like something that could be pulled straight out of a comic like landscape shot.
Yeah.
But no, there's nothing animated that looks like Into the Spider-Verse as far as I'm aware.
Right. Okay, so subject matter, because I imagine we're gonna need something like this in the actual video. What I might actually do is upload this completely unedited conversation as like an unlisted extras video if people want the full background context about how we do this recording and what we have to talk about. But what were your biggest favourite scenes from the movie? Which bits were the most important to you?
Are we talking in terms of animation or just in terms of the actual?
Both.
Okay, I mean, in terms of animation, I think obviously the scene where Miles is falling backwards, and you get so much, not white space, but like blank space around him.
Yeah.
So he's just like perfectly in the center and there's nothing around him. That's a stunning shot. I mean, they must have known when they were doing that.
So this is, all irony aside, from the Spider-Man Miles Morales game that's coming out, that is my only demand, to be able to have that building and recreate that in game, and let me press the X button to fall off the building. And as long as they let me do that, I will buy the game. That's all I need.
I was just thinking actually, because you've not played Spider-Man on PS4.
No, I've not.
There's quite a few places that I recognized in Into the Spider-Verse, which seemed very similar to spots in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
The important one being the church.
Oh!
Because that church is in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You need to get a pic. So, one of the things in Spider-Man is you have to go around taking photos of all the famous buildings. And you had to get a picture of that church, but the way to do it is to jump off the top of the church, fall, and while you're falling, pull the camera out and take a picture.
Yeah.
So you take like almost like a falling shot, and you can, I think, take a selfie.
Okay.
So, it would be good if they could adapt that and give us the shot of Miles falling.
That would be all kinds of amazing. I feel like they would. I feel like with this game being on the list of AAA games, they'd include at least that. Because, I mean, the Spider-Man games in general, or like games based on intellectual properties like this, profit a lot off fan service opportunities, and if that's not a fan service opportunity, I don't know what is.
Yeah, but Spider-Man on the PS4 was very good at doing its own thing.
Okay.
So there was nothing in Spider-Man that felt like it was
pandering?
Referencing anything. Oh yeah, pandering or like the only reference, as far as I'm aware, is at one point he stops a subway train by shooting webs like that.
Yeah.
Like Spider-Man 2. Except his webs snap and then it keeps going.
Okay.
And he goes, that worked the last time.
Okay.
And that's a reference. And I mean, obviously the game is chock full of references to the comics, but there's no specific references to movies or anything.
I did like the tiny gag in Spider-Verse where it was like, save it for Comic-Con. What's Comic-Con? So, scenes that are important. I really, it's a slightly more subtle one, but the entire build-up to the spider actually biting him for the eventual payoff was just very, very delightful.
Oh yeah,
it's like I mean, the artwork that he came to make at the end of it was just lovely to look at. But all of the framing and all of the spiderization, form like real term spiderization, all of the spiderization was just all kinds of lush to appreciate. And it's like everyone in the theater is like on a mutual wavelength of it. Oh, it's coming. Oh, it's coming. It's not there yet, but it's coming. And it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was great. I like seeing... We'll go back to the scenes in a moment. Just something that's always on my mind. How imposing the depiction of Kingpin is in this movie. I know it's because, like... Kingpin has been depicted in many different ways because he's a comic book character who's been in several movies. And I've seen just big, bold men before. But nothing comes close to the actual fucking rhombus that he is in this movie.
It does almost feel like someone's just put a very small ball on top of like a very big block.
Exactly. Like sometimes I'd be scared that his head would drop so far beneath his shoulders that he'd be something not human anymore. Because like the black of his suit hunches over the tiny speck of white that is his head so often that his entire shape is something beyond reality.
Yeah.
But it works. Like you see in the way that they animate him, the way that they make a square run. It's how do they manage that?
I mean, all the characters look fairly distorted in Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Only goes to sell its own sort of visual style.
Yeah, I see that. And it does that so well. I can't complain.
Other important scenes.
Yes.
Miles' dad talking to him through the door.
That's yeah.
I mean, it's already framed to be a very important scene in the movie, so it's not much for me to say, wow, that's an important scene, because obviously, but it is the scene that just had me properly crying the first time I saw it in the cinema by myself.
I love you so much. I know they didn't say that because Miles said web
nothing,
on his mouth.
Yeah.
But like, it might have well have just been that.
Yeah. I do like how they worked the graffiti aesthetic into the art style and also into Miles' character.
Yeah.
Like the fact that, because I'm doing this because I'm seeing the clip now where he's got his new suit, and it's because he sprayed one of Spider-Man's suit with black graffiti and red graffiti, because it gives him his own visual identity.
Definitely.
And it's quite nice not to have graffiti be taboo.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's a capital. So my biggest examples of things that capitalize on that youth culture are Splatoon and Jet Set Radio. And I mean, one of those is extremely thematically around graffiti. And the other is not about graffiti, but it's about spraying paint everywhere. Anyway. There seems to be this big identity thing of like rebellious youth culture and the literal act of spraying colour in places, which I guess adds to the entire theming of the film. The entire film is just splashes of colour all over the place, unapologetic. It almost feels like the graffiti aspect is in its blood.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love it.
It gives it a very good energy. The film never feels like it slows down. Which is nice.
Yeah, I agree. It's very, very...
For a movie that's an action comedy, you don't really want it to sort of slow down. But
yeah. I kind of think Doc Ock is spicy now. I'm not gonna lie. Like the whole femme scientist aesthetic is a big one for me. But like, I'm big on Velma Dinkley, so I've got problems. I feel like it's a problem. Fam. That's going to go right at the end of the video.
A random segue.
Glasses make me weak.
Glasses make me
Glasses and white. I'm glad that I squealed that so nobody will even understand what I said. But you do.
I know.
Oh,
I was there.
You were there. So we've spoken about the animation quality that we love. We've touched on a couple of different scenes. There's probably a couple more we could pick out. It was very fun seeing the 3 extra spider people come down from the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, now we're in a superhero movie. It's like, because up until that point, there'd been a lot of scrambling about, and Spider-Boy is clearly like the most virgin spider out there, struggling to get to grips with his new pubescent spider powers. And then he meets the Grandmasters of Spider. And it's again, it's like a cinema moment where if you're in the cinema with everyone, there's a mutual sort of ooh.
There's
yeah.
It is actually a good point because it is a superhero team movie, like a team up.
Yeah.
But you don't really get those that often.
Yeah.
You only get like the sort of very big team up one. The Avengers just...
Yeah, that's it.
There is Justice League, but we don't need to talk about Justice League.
We don't need to talk about Justice League.
That hurts me as a DC fan, but it does suck.
Fuck you,
DC. They do all suck. The films are really not good. Except Shazam. Anyway, that's not the point. That's not what we're talking about.
I need to watch Shazam.
Shazam's actually good.
Okay.
I mean, it's not great. It's good. It's funny.
That's fair.
They actually made a funny film instead of trying to be too serious about it.
That's
which
nice.
is correct.
They actually copied Marvel's formula.
The thing I resent about that is I don't think Marvel films are all that funny either.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Into the Spider-Verse was quite funny. If that counts as a Marvel movie. I know, like, of course these properties are Marvel, but I don't think this
this was made by Sony. Because Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man.
There we go then. Oh my god, Sony are out here doing bits. They're embarrassing Marvel Studios.
Yeah, it's quite funny because, like, there was a whole, like, brouhaha, if you will, about Sony and Marvel, and Sony lending the Spider-Man IP to Marvel to make Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home or whatever. And then Sony got a lot of flack because I think they tried to renegotiate, and everyone was like, "No, give Marvel back Spider-Man."
And now look at them.
Yeah, exactly. They made Into the Spider-Verse, and I think that alone should shut down that whole argument. But I don't think it will. But anyway, that's not the point. On the basis of comedy, so the two guys who wrote and maybe directed this movie are Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are famous for doing, off the top of my head, 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street and the Lego Movie.
Okay.
So they're very good. They're like very good at their craft. They're very good at comedy. I don't think Into the Spider-Verse is necessarily any funnier than those films.
Yeah.
But it's as funny as you would expect from them.
Yeah, the comedic timing is very appropriate for what this is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it does a really good job of blending action and comedy. In a way, again, that Marvel tries to do quite a lot. Where it tries to do the quick one-liners during combat or during action, which I don't feel works for any character outside of Spider-Man.
Big highlight is where he lobs a bagel at a scientist's head. Very good.
He took the bagel.
Yeah.
Dude, the whole scene where they're trying to steal a computer and they're swinging around is visual comedy, but it is an action scene and it is important to the plot.
Yeah.
And they struck a good balance there.
Absolutely.
I think that's. I mean, they do it throughout the whole film, but that's just a really good example of the kind of scene where they're able to do that.
I agree. So we've spoken about the animation and why we're going to love that. We've spoken about some scenes. Have we touched on the characters enough, other than how Octavia is kind of spicy?
So we've spoken about. I guess we've spoken about Miles and Gwen, but not the others so much.
I like the daddy relationship. I like all of the "you gotta say you love me back," and just like. I know you were right when you were explaining how there's a very efficient telling of the relationships between the three men of the family. Uncle Aaron, Police Dad, whose name I'm going to continue to call Police Dad, and Miles.
I don't know if we ever hear his name, do we?
I'm sure we must do.
I think his mum does refer to the dad by name, but I can't remember what
it clearly wasn't important if we don't remember it. But like, despite that, the efficient storytelling still. Again, because the whole thing here is efficiency but not rushed, it still did a very good job of making us care for these characters. We care about Miles's capacity to maintain a fair and happy relationship with his dad. We care about him looking up to his dodgy, fucking psycho supervillain uncle as a surrogate father figure if he's not on great terms with his own dad. I don't know. Oh, just a little thing that I'm going to point out now because we're actually looking at scenes from the movie right now. I love how the background characters look real. They look like people that I would believably see in this multicultural Brooklyn city. Everybody, nobody looks repeated. Nobody looks boring. Everybody looks like they have some sense of identity, even as just a knockoff background character. And I love that.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference of body types and nobody looks like a face pulled out of the Me character select. They all look like they're drawn from actual genetics of what people would look like. And it's small, but when you watch anime and crowd sequences are just computer generated and everybody looks fucking boring and fades away, it's nice to see people that look like people.
Yeah, definitely. I think it helps ground you in the story as well. And sort of keep you in the scene where when it feels a bit more believable.
Yeah, definitely. Spoken about characters.
There was one thing I wanted to point out because you said you really liked the relationship between him and his mum. I'm pretty sure his mum is only in 2 scenes.
Yeah, it's very minor, but
you're right.
It's endearing enough.
Again, it's efficient storytelling because she's only in 2 scenes, but you do actually get that sense that she's the more caring parent.
Yeah.
You see just about enough of her to understand their relationship and for it to be important.
I wonder how much of that is calculated and how much of that is circumstantial. Do we feel like it's efficient because they designed it that way, or because they literally were like, oh yeah, we'll have his mum in twice and it'll be sick? Bits like that.
It makes me wonder what got left on the chopping room floor.
Yeah, I guess we'll never know until they release the extended edition with all the bits that got left on the chopping room floor.
Yeah, I mean, even that's not all of it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, but you know, even, especially because it's an animated film, I wonder how much like gets lost at every stage, like storyboarding, writing. Yeah.
Memes. There's 2 memes that got really big in this film.
Yeah.
There's the hand on the shoulder saying "Hey."
Hey.
Hey. In fact, can I get, with absolute silence from me, can I get your best hey in the mic?
Hey.
Oh, that had some sufficient bass. I'm going to give it my try. I'll give it my try. Oh, fuck, I'm not ready. Hey.
I liked it.
You liked it? You liked it?
It's a bit sharp.
Yeah.
It was, I don't think the chair creaking building up to the hey was necessary, but, you know.
There was that meme. And also, the bit that almost had me actually in tears. Oh! When he's sending Peter Parker through the teleporter, or the cosmic dimensional warp toad to flip, like the Beyblade.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Not bad, kid." It's not only is that extremely high qualitative meme value, but was it just that was the biggest emotional payoff for me throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like, for everything that was kind of evocative or kind of important, that was the one. That was the bit that mattered to me. The Miles being so confident enough to just fuck off Peter Parker.
You didn't pick the meme with both of them squatting in the snow, which is the big meme that came out of this film.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
I do like pictures of Kingpin looking a bit perturbed far in the background with captions like, "Mom said it's my turn to play on the Xbox." Oh, he's just his existence is an imposition. That's his whole thing.
Yeah.
I wish we got more Spider Noir. Now that I'm looking at him, I did like the characters of Penny Parker, Spider Noir, and Spider Ham. Peter Parker, Spider Ham, one of the two.
I think it's both. I think both are correct.
Yeah. It's a shame that again, with the efficiency of the storytelling, it did mean that a lot was slashed for them, except for two sequences where Penny really wanted to cry because her mech got scorpioned on.
It's because it's psychically linked to the spider, so I think the spider can feel pain.
Oh.
I think that was the thing.
I see.
I
didn't
think she was just crying over the robot.
I did wonder if they were going to drop an anime reference and be like, "Oh, it's a terrible day for rain," and just Full Metal Alchemist on us.
There's a shot.
There it is. Is that the most part? Is that what do we take from this movie? It has set such a precedent that now, if there's ever an animated superhero movie again, it's got huge shoes to fill.
I mean, it's getting a sequel.
When? Oh, I
don't know. I think 2022 or something.
Okay, so I guess if I wanted anything more, it would just be more of this. I'd love more of this.
Yeah.
Watch Premiere, please.
Okay.
I'm gonna keep telling you, it's worth it.
I will say, I think every superhero movie could learn from this, not just the animated ones, because I think even if you take away the sort of fantastic animation and colour and all that, there's still a lot of great stuff there that I don't think a lot of movies really do and achieve. Like efficient storytelling, or the ability to build emotional stakes without getting too sort of soppy and bogged down. Especially with a lot of the Marvel films, because they've set up all these characters. So I don't know. I feel like they still waste a lot of time, and I don't know why. Yeah,
so especially with Endgame, because now that I think about it, the actual prime superhero cast is 15 people, and only maybe 2 of them die. So to give these big, very, very highly paid actors enough time to be worth it, they've got to spend a lot of what will ultimately feel like wasted time, because how do you get so emotionally invested in that many people through the runtime of like a 2.5 hour movie? It's a lot to ask of your audience to care about both Spider-Man and Iron Man and Thor and Hulk and Black Widow and Scarlet Witch and Thanos and Gamora. Is her name Gamora?
Yeah.
And Nebula and Chris Pratt. It's a success that they managed to do it, because I don't feel like people leave superhero movies going, wow, did I not give a shit about these superheroes?
Yeah.
But equally, I still think creators do need to leverage the fact that they are asking something of their audience. They're asking you to care about these people. So I guess this movie does a good job of saying, we want you to care about Miles at least, but we, as you can see, we only care about Penny Parker so much, so you don't have to either. That's a relief.
Yeah. I think that's a fairly good point, because Guardians of the Galaxy is quite similar in that, like, you get 5 characters, you don't get that much backstory on them.
Yeah.
You get stakes set up very quickly.
You get Groot.
An orb, and they're being hunted.
Yeah.
Orb? Yeah, and that's a really good film. People love Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's funny, and it's sharp.
Chris Pratt.
Oh, Chris Pratt's great. I want to say he made a whole career out of it, as if he wasn't doing Parks and Rec for 5 years before then.
Apparently, he's Hollywood's least favourite Chris, and the internet broke down for a bit upon this revelation.
Do you feel bad for him?
Oh, fuck it.
It was all just dumb bullshit. But anyway.
Yeah. Is there anything important that you think we? Because again, this is the preparation for a more well constructed video on the subject matter. We're definitely going to be talking about the animation. We're definitely going to be talking about the cultural impact, which we have touched on. We're going to be talking about the characters, which I feel like we've mostly touched on. There's again, through its efficiency, there's only so much to say. They did what they needed to with the characters that they had, and that was loved it.
Yep.
Is there anything much else?
No, not that I can think of. I think we've...
So, and imagining that you are going to be made to script some of the things that you'll be saying and what you'll want to have said out of your mouth.
Yeah.
So what would you want to... So if somebody had never seen this movie before and you approached them trying to convince them, why are you going to tell them to watch this movie?
Okay, fine. So, first of all, it looks incredible and it's just a feast for the eyes.
Big agree.
It has a very good story that's very well told.
Yeah. It's got a black Spider-Man. I can't believe I haven't said this whole time.
Yeah, I mean...
Sorry, go ahead.
It's so weird that, like... Because he's half black, half Latino.
Yeah! Which is dark brown, as far as I'm concerned.
And that's such a big deal.
Yeah.
I do wonder what it was like when he... I think he debuted in, like, the early 2000s? Maybe 90s? I can't remember. One of those. I think maybe early 2000s.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine how much of a big deal that would have been at the time. To have a Spider-Man come in that was like not like Peter Parker, but completely different race and ethnicity and
good on them.
Whole different identity. Yeah, but the guy who wrote it, so the guy who created Miles Morales, is a guy called Brian Michael Bendis.
Yeah, it's
a fantastic writer. So I imagine what would have probably happened is he would have debuted Miles Morales and everyone would have been like, this is actually really good.
Yeah, because it was. I'm assuming so. Like, I haven't read the comics and I don't read comics. Not as a rule, just because it's just not something I've spent time indulging in. But I assume from what I get to see as a result of those source materials that the source material must be pretty good. It must be.
Yeah.
I will be proven wrong on many occasions. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of examples where the source material, especially in anime, is, like, especially trash. But I appreciate what media has spawned out of it.
Yeah.
And that there's a following for the comics. I like that the media exists and that there's people willing to buy that. I like that Carl buys all the Sonic Archie comics. Word up, Carl Pierce. Go subscribe to that channel that he never uploads to.
I forget what it's called.
Oddly Amusing.
It's not, is it? Is it Oddly Amusing now?
Yeah, I believe it's Oddly Amusing. I don't think it's POC.
Yeah, okay. I don't remember.
Oh well. Lads and ladies, that is Into the Spider-Verse. We think you should watch it.
Hard agree.
You've probably already watched it.
Hard agree.
But for any of you who haven't watched it, or for any of you who just wanted to hear us talk about it, that's what we think. We think it's a fucking fantastic movie.
Yeah, and it's on Netflix.
Yeah. You have no reason not to watch it. Do it now. Like, preferably, like, after liking and subscribing. But then go watch Into the Spider-Verse. Have a good time.
And thanks for listening.